A few years ago, when I was working in a coffee shop for minimum wage, barely eking out a meager existence, one of the things that I discovered is what I'm sharing with you right here.
Joining us is my man, Keala Kanae.
Keala Kanae, he takes entrepreneurs on a journey to grow their business.
In this video, we're going to talk about 3 ways in which we are conditioned to be poor, as well as how to change it. So hang with me. The first way in which we're conditioned to be poor is actually through early childhood. Most scientists today will agree that from 0 to about 6 or 8 years old, we develop most of our subconscious programming. In other words, we develop the beliefs that we're going to carry throughout our entire life about ourself and the world around us by the time we're about 8 years old. Whatever we believe about ourselves or the world will ultimately dictate our actions, and our actions will become our results. In fact, in a recent study of children 0 to 6 years old in which their brainwave patterns were measured, it was discovered that the majority of the time they're operating at the delta and theta states. This is also called the hypnagogic state. It's called that because it's the same neural state that hypnotists use to install new beliefs and new behavioral patterns in their clients. Said differently, what that suggests is from 0 to 6 years old, we're basically in hypnotic trance. So if we're surrounded by an environment in which we're hearing things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or it's hard to make money, or rich people are evil, or rich people are greedy, and so on and so forth. Well, eventually what's happening is we're developing our beliefs around money, our ability to make money, around people who have money, and we're developing it before we're logical and rational enough to question whether or not those beliefs are real. So to sum it up, from 0 to about 8 years old, if we're in an environment in which there's limited thinking around money, well, we're going to adopt that same limited thinking. This is likely why children who are born into poverty will end up dying in poverty, whereas children who are born rich end up dying rich. The second way in which we're conditioned to be poor is through our educational system. Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying that our educational system is all bad. I think there's way too much rhetoric about that out there. I'm wise enough to understand that everything in the universe has both a benefit and a drawback in equal proportion. Literally, the fabric of the universe is duality. And at the same time, inside of our educational system, we're often taught that there's only one right answer to every question. We're also taught to sit down, be quiet, not to speak up. And these are behaviors and beliefs that are contradictory to building wealth and success. Whether you want to build wealth through investment or as an entrepreneur, you're going to have to understand that sometimes you're going to have to take exceptional amounts of risk. Sometimes you're going to have to speak up out of turn. And that often, more often than not, in fact, there is many more than just one right answer to any problem. Another way in which we're conditioned to be poor is through consumerism. Think about how often throughout our day we're inundated by messages from social media and mainstream media about what it looks like to be successful, the kind of car that we should drive, the clothes that we should wear, the jewelry that we should adorn ourselves with. And it can become very easy then to feel that in order to be successful, I need to look successful. People would often rather look rich than actually be rich. And that becomes exacerbated even more by the credit markets. What does a credit card allow you to do? It decouples the pleasure of having something from the pain of having to pay for it. I can buy something today and experience the dopamine and the endorphins of having it and not have to pay for it for 30 days or more. That means that I get to have the pleasure today while kicking the pain down the road a bit. So now let's talk about how we change this. So I'm going to pull out my whiteboard here and I'm going to start to break this down for you. Now, everything that I'm about to share with you here comes from a field of study known as axiology. And through axiology, we can observe that every human being has a hierarchy of values. The things that we value most in life down to the things that we potentially don't value at all. And all of these values actually come from the conditioning that I just talked about a moment ago. Now, when I say values, I want to be clear here. I'm not talking about social ideals. Oftentimes people hear this and they think, I know what my values are, Keala. It's integrity, respect, fairness. No, those are social ideals. What I'm talking about here is the fact that every day that you and I wake up, there's the things that we value most in our life down to the things that we potentially don't value at all. As an example here, if someone wakes up in the morning and the first thing that they start to think about is their kids' education, their kids' health, their kids' after school programs, then we can probably deduce that they have a high value on children. If somebody else wakes up in the morning and the first thing that they start to think about is their business's goals, their business's projects, challenges that the business is facing, well, we can probably deduce that they have a high value on business. Now, the reason that this is important is because our values are going to dictate how we utilize our resources. Our primary resources are time time, energy, and money. So every day we wake up and we have a finite amount of time, energy, and money that we can deploy into our day. And it's going to be filtered directly through our values. So the things that we value most in life will get the majority of our time, energy, and money. And then the next thing, and then the next, and the next, and the next, until eventually we run out of these resources long before we run out of a laundry list of things to do. Now, the reason that's important is because if we don't have a high value on wealth, money, finance, cash in the bank, well, then we're never going to actually manifest it. See, we run out of time, energy, and money long before we ever invest in getting rich. So even though we say that we want to be rich, even though we say that we'd like to build wealth, if we don't actually value it enough, then no energy and effort ever goes to it, because all of the other things that we value more are eating up all of our resources. Plainly put, how we invest our resources, time, energy, and money, will become our destiny. It's really simple. There's no hocus pocus about it. If you want to know whether or not you're ever going to be rich, then ask yourself, do you dedicate time, energy, and money every day to becoming rich? So most of us are going to adopt values throughout our life that contradict the goal of becoming wealthy. And a large part of that comes from being conditioned throughout our life to adhere to these values rather than to actually valuing money, finance, and wealth. So here's the good news. We can change our values at any time. We can adjust our values to have a higher value on money and finance. And when we have a high value on cash, investing, saving, then and only then are we going to stand a chance of building real wealth. So a few years ago, when I was working in a coffee shop for minimum wage, barely eking out a meager existence, one of the things that I discovered is what I'm sharing with you right here. And I went to work on shifting my values to have a high value on wealth, on building a business, on delivering a service of love to the marketplace, and to having a cause that was worth pursuing in life. And as a result, less than 10 years later, I was a multi-millionaire. Where most people watch YouTube videos and read books, listen to podcasts talking about making money, but they never actually make the transformation that makes it possible, I underwent that transformation. And it stems from everything that I'm sharing with you right here on this whiteboard. And so here's the good news. If you want to change your values to match the goal of becoming wealthy, you absolutely can. So listen, there's obviously much more to this conversation than I can possibly cover in this video, including how to shift your values. And that's why I've created another video that I'm going to link to here in just a moment, in which I go much deeper on the topic of values, how to discover your hierarchy of values, and how to begin to shift those values to align with the goals that you have for your life. Now, if you're somebody who is committed to success, both personally and professionally, then make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell notification so you get notified every week when I drop more content like this. And in case we've never met before, my name is Keala Kanae. I'm an entrepreneur that went from working in a coffee shop for minimum wage to building multiple 7- and 8-figure businesses. My primary business doing over 90 million in sales at this point. And I say that so that you know that everything I share on my channel comes from the real world applied knowledge of things that I've learned and executed that have helped me create those results. I share them here on my channel in hopes that they help you create similar results as well. So make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell notification so you get notified every week when I drop more content like this. And watch the next video in the lineup where I'm going to talk to you about more manifestation secrets. I'll see you there.